In the densest reaches of the rainforests of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there are unicorns. Yep. We're going there again, because this jungle is just full of fantastic creatures waiting to be found, or at least that was the case as far as the European explorers of the 1800s were concerned. Heck, they had actually started searching for living, non-avian dinosaurs there by the mid-20th century. This African unicorn was especially compelling, though, because it seemed to match up with tales of a horse-like creature with a horned head believed to live there. But does this beast deserve all of the cryptid cred? That is, how mythological can a creature really be if the locals were only ever just giving straightforward descriptions of a known animal in their backyard? The Bizarre Beasts Pin Club is open for subscriptions for the whole month. Sign up by April 20th and the first pin you get will be the definitely real, non-mythical Okapi. Meet the Okapi, Okapia johnstoni. It's also sometimes called the forest giraffe because it is the only living relative of the actual giraffe, and because it lives in the forest. And you can see some of their similarities. Like okapis and giraffes both have ossicones, the skin and fur-covered horn-like structures on their heads. The difference is that only Okapi males have full ossicones, while females just have little bumps. Now, they're also quite a bit smaller than giraffes, coming in at around 1.5 meters tall and between 200 and 350 kilograms. They mainly eat leaves, which again, like their giraffe cousins, they grab with their very long prehensile tongues. And I should probably qualify very long, over 30 centimeters. And sometimes they have to supplement their nutritional needs for minerals, which they do by eating clay, charcoal, and even bat poop. Okapis are largely solitary, and they only live in the most remote parts of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And they are very elusive, hence their unicorn status. Their dark coat keeps them hidden from predators in the shade of the forest, while their stripy butts blend into areas of dappled light. These stripes are also called follow-me stripes because they make it easier for baby okapis to more clearly see their mother in front of them in dim light. And this beautifully decorated coat of theirs is waterproofed with oil that the okapi secretes. They also secrete a tar-like substance from glands in their feet that they leave behind as they walk, creating scent markings on the ground to communicate to other individuals about territory. And they communicate other weird ways as well, including using infrasound, super low-frequency vibrations that can carry for very long distances. Moms may use this to check in on their young, hiding babies while out foraging. It's kind of like a low-tech baby monitor that predators cannot hear. A female okapi typically stashes her brand new calf in a well-camouflaged spot while she finds food and stops back periodically to nurse, keeping this up until the calf is big enough to forage with her. Until then, the babies have the ability to avoid pooping for 1 or 2 months after they are born to avoid attracting predators to the smell. This species is good at staying hidden, is the point. And they're so shy that it took a solid 3 decades of hunts before anyone actually managed to photograph one alive in the wild. And the first wild okapi photographs taken by camera traps didn't happen until 2008. That very elusiveness is why the okapi has, for years and years, been cited as one of cryptozoology's greatest success stories. Cryptozoology was originally defined as the study of animals that are not yet formally known to science, but that might be known locally through sightings and stories. In that sense, then, the process by which okapi became known to Westerners does seem to fit the bill.
When you need to see a doctor, searching for the right one can often feel as daunting as tracking down an okapi. So instead, a lot of the time, we just put it off. But just like those elusive forest giraffes, doctors that perfectly fit your needs aren't actually mythological. And that's exactly where ZocDoc, today's video sponsor, comes in. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search, compare, and instantly book high-quality in-network doctors. So instead of trying to figure it out all on your own, with ZocDoc you can actually see real doctors, real reviews, and real availability all in one place. You can filter by your insurance, location, and what you actually need, and find someone who feels like the right fit for you, not just whoever you happen to land on. You just check their schedule, pick a time that fits your life, and book it, sometimes even the same day, or within 24 to 72 hours. So if something's been on your mind, or you've been putting something off because it just feels like too much to deal with, go to ZocDoc ZocDoc.com/bizarrebeasts to find and instantly book a top-rated in-network doctor today. Thank you to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video and for helping all of us take better care of our health.
In 1890, famous adventurer and self-mythologizer Henry Morton Stanley published his accounts of a recent expedition from Zanzibar to South Sudan via the Congo River basin. In an appendix, he very briefly mentioned hearing about a type of local leaf-eating donkey that, to his memory, the Mbuti people called Ati. A decade later, this little aside would catch the attention of naturalist and colonial administrator Harry Johnston. This was in part because there were no known equine species that lived in that part of Africa, or in forests in general, and more enticingly because previous publications made mention of the possibility of an African unicorn. And look, if our narwhal episode has taught us anything, it's that Europeans love a unicorn story. While he was posted in the British Protectorate of Uganda, Johnston was tasked with helping return 7 Mbuti people to their homes in the Ituri forest from which they had been kidnapped by a German man who planned to display them at the 1900 Paris exhibition. It was a bad time to really undersell it. The rescued Mbuti lived outdoors on Johnston's estate until their expedition back home was prepared, and Johnston took the opportunity in the meantime to ask them about Stanley's mystery donkey thing. They very unambiguously described an animal known as an Okapi, which had a long neck, stripes on its legs, and all the hallmark traits of the animal we know today. So once the kidnappees were returned home, Johnston trekked into the Ituri in pursuit of the animal they had spoken of, spurred on by corroboration from the Belgian forces stationed there. But when Johnston's local guides pointed out a set of cloven-hoofed Okapi tracks, he dismissed the find as an attempt to deceive the group. Surely they were meant to be hunting something with horse-like hooves. He and the rest of his party inevitably couldn't hang. They got so much malaria. So they left empty-handed, save for a pair of Okapi skin belts that he bought and sent to the Zoological Society of London. The ZSL concluded from these hide scraps that the Okapi was a yet unknown species of zebra, which they tentatively named Equus johnstoni. A few months later, in March of 1901, Johnston's Belgian contacts sent him a pair of skulls and a complete Okapi skin from which a much more accurate description of the species could be made. Johnston drew an initial, surprisingly accurate illustration of the Okapi from the skin alone, and later modified his future depictions after seeing the taxidermied results of the same skin. There was then a bit of a fervor in the scientific community over whether this animal was a not actually extinct Halatotherium, a living missing link to modern giraffes. But then, a zoologist named Ray Lancaster determined that the Okapi must be a different modern relative of the giraffe, and assigned it to a brand new genus, Okapia. The following decade would see a series of game hunters seeking to be the first European to see a live Okapi, and to, of course, then render it not alive anymore because trophies. But none of them would succeed in hunting an Okapi themselves. Instead, local hunters would do the deed, and the resulting skins and skeletons would begin to fill the collections of museums all over Europe. Attempts to track Okapis sometimes lasted months and proved absolutely exhausting. And even being allowed into their habitat for such hunts meant playing nice with Belgium by ignoring all of King Leopold's many human rights violations in his so-called Congo Free State. World War I halted any further Okapi expeditions for a while, but by the late 1930s, live specimens were being captured and shipped internationally. Today, the Okapi can be seen in zoos all over the world, where quite a few breeding programs remain in place. But the casual giraffeness you might witness there belies the Okapi's weird and winding history of becoming real, as far as science was concerned. So at least by the original definition of their field, it makes sense that cryptozoologists would be excited about the Okapi's formal discovery. The International Society of Cryptozoology even uses its image as their logo. Their museum, meanwhile, uses the coelacanth. The problem is that the identification and description of previously unknown species is kinda already covered by regular zoology. The even bigger problem is that the field of cryptozoology has since shifted most of its focus to things like Sasquatch and the Loch Ness Monster, so retroactively claiming the Okapi is is more about legitimization nowadays. And worst of all, the entire notion of the Okapi being an unknown species in the first place was purely declared and reinforced by European scientists. Dismissing non-European species as pure fantasy was quite a trademark of peak colonial science. Just look at the pygmy hippo, the giant panda, the gorilla, and plenty more. And this Okapi story takes place right in the middle of the aptly named Scramble for Africa. So as various empires hurried to exploit African land, people, and resources, there was a sense of possessiveness, even about knowledge. We often find that a beast seems bizarre due to anthropocentric bias, and that's plenty true with the Okapi. But a lot of its almost mythical status comes down to Eurocentric bias as well, because this African unicorn was always real to anyone willing to actually pay attention. Sign up for the Pin Club at BizarreBeastShow.com and help keep this channel going. If you want an Okapi to be your first pin, sign up by April 20th.
We wanted to give some special thanks to National Geographic PhotoArc and the PhotoArc Foundation and the San Diego Zoo for letting us use their images in this episode.
And now for your bonus facts. The Okapi's rarity comes with a cost. The species is also endangered. Because of how difficult they are to find, they're also difficult to count, and researchers have to rely on indirect means of estimating their population size, like footprints, scat, and other signs of recent or regular Okapi presence. Despite these difficulties, however, scientists are still confident that the population is steadily declining and is likely well below 10,000 total today. Habitat loss is definitely a factor, but this is complicated by the fact that slash-and-burn farming in these cases is more of a survival effort for political refugees than it is an act of commercial overreach. And the same is true of subsistence hunting. Organizations like the Okapi Conservation Project, established in 1987, have taken major steps towards stabilizing the area, including via their 1992 establishment of the Okapi Wildlife Reserve. At over 5,400 square miles, about 14,000 square kilometers, it encompasses about 1/5 of the Okapi's entire Ituri forest range. But the civil unrest driving more people into the Okapi's forest doesn't make it any easier to enforce conservation laws. A group of armed miners and poachers even attacked the headquarters of the Okapi Wildlife Reserve in 2012, killing 7 people and the 14 Okapis that lived at the station. The reserve managed to bounce back, however, and the Okapi Conservation Project continues its mission in earnest, with the Okapi as their umbrella species. This means that by protecting the Okapi, they can protect all sorts of other inhabitants of the same area as well, which includes the people who live there too. The OCP aims not just to help the forest giraffe, but also to meaningfully improve the quality of living for all of its human neighbors. Supporting safe and healthy communities so often really does reap benefits across the board. A rising Okapi tide lifts all boats.